What's up, YouTube? How's it going? Today is the saddest day I've had to experience in a very long time. You guys are looking at that right now on the screen. The Injustice 2 beta has ended. Oh, it was so much fun. And now I'm so sad. But it's okay. With the end of the Injustice 2 beta, I feel like after playing the game for about a month and just really getting fully indulged in the game, I got enough time to experience the game, and the beta's finally over, so I can give you my full-on review, my full-on impressions of the game. Really quickly, I'm just going to go over the characters of the game. I'm going to make a comparison to MKX, because I'm pretty sure most of the players that will be playing Injustice 2 will be playing it after playing MKX. I'm pretty sure it's the same community that likes NetherRealm games that are just going to transition over from the MKX into Injustice 2. And so transitioning, we're going to go over the type of things that you might experience. And I'm going to give my general impressions of the beta. Really quickly, how I feel about the beta. Generally, my general impression, just instantly, it was so much fun. This beta was a blast. I absolutely loved everything about it. There are minute, few little things that I felt need to be changed that I'm sure they're probably going to deal with or get a touch on. One of the things you guys are looking at right now, and that is the Superman. Superman is probably the broken character of the beta. In my opinion, he seemed a little much, you know? He seemed a little much, people. He seemed too much. Like, I couldn't really handle him. So let's go over the characters now that we're talking about characters. The absolute best character in the beta, in my opinion, was probably Superman. Supergirl was broken at first, but I believe they touched her up in the beta, and she's not all of that now. Now she plays a heavy mix-up game, and when she gets you in the corner, boy, those resets and mix-ups in the corner can be tough to deal with. But apart from that, I didn't really have any trouble dealing. I didn't have much trouble dealing with Supergirl throughout the beta. Supergirl wasn't really a major issue for me to deal with. But Superman, boy oh boy, was Superman a massive issue for me to deal with. He had an advancing double mid that started at 8 frames, that was only like -2. He had a Frost Breath that went plus on meter burn. On block, he could use the Frost Breath to also be like -3. He was just, he felt unpunishable to me. He just felt like a character that you can't punish. Apart from that, he was also getting upwards of 40-something% off of just one bar, or maybe not even a bar, maybe just a trait. And in the corner, he's taking 60% of your health with a bar and a trait. It's like, he was a little much. He had a little much, in my opinion. And he could also full screen zone, as you guys are seeing right now. Like, Superman, he was able to do it all. And I feel like no character should absolutely do it all. You shouldn't be able to zone. You shouldn't be able to get like 60% if you're also zoning on a combo, you know? You also probably shouldn't have double mid advancing forward moves. You should probably have like a high and then a mid. And so my guess is that they're probably going to adjust that. The thing they're probably going to do with Superman is make it so that either his forward 2-3 has a high at the start, or it's more negative after on block. Something like that would make Superman less ridiculous. Because to be honest with you, he doesn't feel too, like... The only thing that makes him insane is the fact that he can advance forward and virtually be unpunishable. Like, that's the thing that makes it really, really difficult to deal with Superman. It's just the fact that his forward 2-3 is like barely negative or not negative at all. He can do it whenever he wants, and you can't really punish it. You just have to backdash, and if you backdash, you'll get hit with a Frost Breath. It's just, you know, it's a little much. So they'll probably, I feel like that's what they'll change. They'll either make it a high, so you can low profile it, or they'll make it more negative so that it's not absolutely absurd. Apart from that, I don't think he really needs like a serious nerf or whatever like that. I don't think any of the characters in the beta need a serious nerf. It's just Superman needs that small adjustment to make him more of a character that's relatable. When it comes to damage, I think the highest damaging character is probably going to be Black Canary. From what I've seen in the beta, off of a combo, she can get like 60% with a combo and trait. I mean, Superman could do the same thing, but he only does that in the corner, and she does that in anywhere, just mid-screen, she'll hit 60%. I tweeted out a picture, I don't know if you guys saw it, if you're following me on Twitter, I tweeted out a picture where I did 80% to someone because he chose to turn off the gear. Be sure to follow me on Twitter if you're not already following me on Twitter, so that way you guys can see pictures like this, so that way you guys can hear about some gameplay that's coming up, or new videos that are coming out when my live streams are up, so that way we can just talk or something like that about how the day's going. So yeah, as you guys can see, Black Canary can get absolutely crazy amounts of damage. So when it comes to high damage characters, look out for Black Canary. But apart from that, everyone's damage is about even. I feel like most characters do roughly around the same amount of damage, except for poor old Blue Beetle. Little Blue Beetle gets next to no damage in the beta. Like him and I guess Supergirl don't really get high damage. What Supergirl does is she mix up over and over again. She doesn't really get high damage. She just crosses up or has like crazy corner pressure. And Blue Beetle doesn't really get high damage either. Instead, what he does is zone. That is the goal of Blue Beetle. Zone, 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 zone. Stay full screen, keep your opponent out, and when they try to come in, get a combo punish for something like 30%. I mean, you can get up to 40 or 50, but it's going to cost you both of your bars, and you're going to have to hit confirm it. It's not a safe way to combo. It's not like other characters where you always have your traditional combos, and so the damage you get is always traditionally safe, the same amount of damage. Blue Beetle's very different. What he does is zone, and so that's how you want to play as Blue Beetle. Now, the easiest character in the beta. I'm going to tell you guys my opinion of the absolute easiest character in the beta. I'm sure you guys have seen it in videos before, and it is Atrocitus. Atrocitus is the baby character of the beta. Atrocitus is the character you'll be playing day one. He's the character that you can just come out the gate and know how to use. He's very, very simple. He has basically 2 combos that you'll always be doing with him, and you'll just try to mix them up and just apply pressure. Atrocitus, he's very simple. He kind of gets repetitive after a while because he's the same input after the same input. There's nothing true to, you know, snazzy about him. There's no real intricacies to his gameplay. He's a very straightforward character, and he's a very easy character to play, so I would definitely recommend him for your first character on the game. If it's your very first character, very first time playing Injustice, you want to pick up the game and just do well easily, I'd highly recommend Atrocitus because Atrocitus is extremely easy. Now, Batman, Black Canary, those characters are a little bit more complex. Even Superman to a certain degree. Supergirl, more complex. The most complex character of the beta is hands down Blue Beetle. Blue Beetle is probably going to be the toughest character to play with. Probably just because he's so weak in a way. Like, I almost feel bad for Blue Beetle. He was definitely, in my opinion, the weakest character in the beta. But he was just so cool to look at and a lot of fun to play as that you tend to overlook the fact that he's weak. But if you're trying to get wins, you're probably not going to be playing as Blue Beetle. I mean, this might change when the actual game comes out, but just for the beta, Blue Beetle was by far the most difficult and the most you know, unrewarding characters to play as, because you're not going to get a lot of damage like you would with Black Canary or Superman. You're not going to be able to space people like you would with Superman, or even Supergirl, really. Supergirl can space people pretty well. You don't have the rush down aspect of a Batman or a Black Canary, and you don't control space as well as Atrocitus. You don't even have the 50-50 game that Atrocitus kind of has. It's kind of sad, really, but that's just how it is. Hopefully Blue Beetle will change a little bit when the actual game comes out, or maybe when the full roster is out. Maybe Blue Beetle will be better against those other characters in the roster that we haven't experienced yet, that we experienced in the beta. But so far, as to the beta, Blue Beetle being probably the worst beta character in the beta, Superman probably being the best, Atrocitus probably being your easiest character in the beta. Now, the comparison for MKX to Injustice, it actually has there's some similarities where MKX had this run feature, and there's no run in Injustice 2, but what you do have is a roll, and the roll is essentially a way to get in, and you can even mix up with the roll. If you space it properly, you'll end up on the other side of the opponent, and I've seen a lot of Batmans call out their bats, their trait, and then use their trait and roll, and so the trait actually mixes up because it's hitting from their back, which once was their front, and then you can do a full combo on the other side. So they're basically getting hit from both sides. And as you guys know, Injustice 2 doesn't have a button to block. It's an actual back, but you have to hold back to block. So if you're getting hit from both sides, it's going to be pretty difficult to do that. So I think the roll might be actually better than a run mechanic in MKX. So if any of you guys really enjoyed the run feature of MKX, you're really gonna like the roll feature of Injustice 2. Now, it does require both of your bars, but you do have one additional bar in Injustice that you didn't have in MKX. You have 4 bars in Injustice, and in MKX you only had 3. Another comparison is the jump-ins. Now, in MKX, you used to be able to just down to any jump in. I learned after being extremely salty on one of my streams against one of my opponents, you can't down to a jump in. I tell you that. To down to a jump in Injustice 2, it's definitely possible, and you could get full combos off of it. But to down to a jump in, you have to properly space it. You have to make sure that you're down toing before, like, as they're jumping in. You can't down to on a hard knockdown, which is something that you could do in MKX. In MKX, if your opponent tries to reset you and knock you down and cross you up, you can down to and punish their jump. In Injustice 2, if they're that close to your body and they've hard knocked you down, when they cross up, you have to block the cross up. You cannot down to it, at least not with Black Canary. That's what I've learned. Different characters have different down to speeds, and Black Canary's down to speed is too slow to punish a cross up after a hard knockdown. While we're on the subject of Black Canary, I felt like Black Canary was a very solid character. She was more complex than your basic 50-50 character like Sonya. Sonya was a very simple 50-50 character, but Black Canary was a little bit more complex in the way that she has no projectiles, so you have to manage her trait properly, and you have to stay in, and you have to properly cross your opponent up, and not always with jumping, but with rolling straight through their body to then mess up their input to either grab or go for a low or an overhead or something like that. And so she has her complexity to her. She's not your basic 50-50 character that Sonya is. And unfortunately, Black Canary in the beta is the only character with no invulnerable wake up. So if you hard knock down Black Canary or put her in the corner, you can completely punish her. You can abuse her. You can do anything you want, and she just can't deal with it. I feel like that's an issue that needs to be addressed. I feel like she needs to have some kind of invulnerable wake up so that she can avoid being completely abused in the corner. I feel like no character under any circumstances should be completely abused in the corner, even if they have high damage and really good 50-50s. I feel like you need some kind of wake up to force your opponent to respect you. But anyway, back to jump-ins. As I was talking about before, jump-ins in this game are very different. In this game, if you jump in, it's not a true block string if you try to continue to attack after. In MKX it is. If you jump in and hit in MKX, the jump in hit, and you continue to press a button after that, your opponent cannot press a button because they're in a true block string. In Injustice 2, it doesn't work that way. If you jump in and try to continue it, if you try to continue the block string with like a high or something like that, your opponent can crouch that and low profile the high and completely punish you. I kept having that problem with my Batman where I do jump in 2 and try to do 1-2, and my opponent would duck and punish the high with a low profile. So you need to know that your jump-ins in Injustice 2, they aren't going to lead to a true block string. For that, you're going to need to have the right input, and you're going to need to pre-input it pretty heavily if you want it to be a true block string. You're going to need to pre-input that jump-in. Whereas in MKX, you would jump in and see if your jump in hit to continue the block string, and Injustice is going to be very different in that aspect. And now for the gear system. I felt like the gear system was probably one of the most fun, exciting, new, and original aspects of the beta, if you ask me. I did not like the buff, as you guys saw in the previous picture. Gear can make a huge difference. That 80% you saw me get on Black Canary was just an absurd difference between the gear that I had and the gear that that guy had, which led to my 60% combo doing an additional 20%. So I'm not a big fan of how the gear can overall affect the gameplay, but I do like the cosmetic aspect of the game. Now, they did, of course, already touch on that. The gear will be in player mode. You'll have the option to either play with the gear on or have it off, and they will have a mode alone, separate, basically the rank mode of the game, where you cannot play with the gear at all, and you're forced to play with the mandatory, like the base set that everyone has. But I don't know how I feel about the gear being in the game overall. I definitely love how I look. I don't love how it affects damage. They kind of said it wouldn't have too much of an effect, but just by judging in that picture, you guys saw, like, the gear had a 20% difference. That is an absolute huge effect on the game. Another thing to note about gear that I'm sure you guys have noticed just by looking at the pictures is that you have a character level and then you have a gear level. You unlock gear based off of your character level. So if my character is level 15, then I'll unlock level 15 gear. Obviously, the higher character level you are, the higher the gear level you unlock. And obviously, the higher the gear level, the better stats you get, the better abilities you get, the overall better gear you get. You can get level 1 epics, and they're still going to be weaker than the level 5 epics or the level 15 epics. So your gear can change based off of the character level. And then that's not the only thing. You also have an individual player level that changes as you continue to play the game. I'm not too sure what the player level does. I didn't really notice that in the beta. That probably affects aspects of the game that weren't seen in the beta that we'll see in the full version of the game. So if you really like a character and you want to unlock strong gear with them and crush your opponent just by stronger gear, you're going to have to play with that character a lot, because you're going to want to level that character up to 20, because at 20, that's when you unlock 20 gear, and 20 gear is the strongest gear. At least as it was seen in the beta. Maybe in the full version of the game, your characters can go to a higher level. I don't see why they would change that. I'm pretty sure each character is probably going to cap out at level 20, because there's going to be a full roster, so it's going to take a lot of time to get all of those characters to level 20 and get all of the level 20 gear for each individual character. That's going to take a lot of playing. Luckily, you don't have to play a character to unlock gear for that character. So if you're leveling up, let's say you're Batman and your Batman's level 15 and you keep getting him higher to get stronger gear, you'll still get like your level 1 gear for your other characters, which is nice, because sometimes you want to go into a character and already kind of have gear, not have to fully grind out every single character, because that would just take far too much time. Another aspect of the gear that is in the beta that I'm sure will be in the full game is your inventory. Your inventory can fill up, and if it gets full, if you get too much gear, then you end up going into the extra box, and then eventually you have to like clear out your gear set to add it back into your inventory. So basically, like any other MMORPG, if you have bags, you walk around with bags, you pick up items, your bags get full. That's basically how it works, the same as all other like MMORPG type stuff. You just have to delete the low level gear that you don't need, because like I said, you'll be leveling up. So when you get to 20, you're not going to need your level 1 gear, your level 8 gear, your level 5 gear. All that stuff will be far too weak for you. You won't need it anymore. Delete it so that way you can pick up more gear for other characters or stronger gear for the same character. So I hope you all enjoyed this video. I hope it was useful for you. I hope you guys got a good understanding of how the beta was. If you didn't get to play it, I'm so sorry. I know a lot of people didn't get to play it. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next one. Stay tuned for some more.